CES 2025 wrap-up with Norman Frassa. This is MacVoices. Today's MacVoices is supported by MacVoices After Dark. What happens before the show starts and after we sign off? Informative, fun, and completely off-script conversations. That's what. MacVoices After Dark is an exclusive benefit for our Patreon subscribers. Sign up now at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joiner. Folks, this is a CES 2025 wrap-up show. The interviews are all out. By my count, there were 51 of them. And I felt like, okay, I just didn't want to let it end and disappear. So I asked Norbert Frassa, who is the CES Sherpa. Norbert usually hangs out behind the camera. Once in a while, you'll get his face in front of it, but he hangs out back there, makes me look good, or as good as I can possibly look, makes all the interviews we do better. And I couldn't think of a better way to wrap CES than to have him. So, Norbert, it's great to see you. I feel like, we get together for CES week and everything is so intense and we spend so much time together, and then we retreat to our respective locations for another year.
It feels like it, Chuck. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. A pleasure to be drug out in front of the camera this time. I like to hang out behind the camera. That's my safe zone, but I'll come out to play with people and see the day of light. And yeah, it's a pleasure to see you again. It's been a little bit more than almost 2 months already, pretty in CES. So time flies.
It does. It also flies when you have 51 interviews to edit and to get out so that people can enjoy them.
We did a lot of work.
Well, but I want to give you at least equal credit, if not more, because you really help keep things organized. You keep the camera where it should be as much as possible when you're not having to beat people from getting in front of the camera or bumping the gear or whatever. So that's always appreciated.
That's the best part of the job, bumping people out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, you said something about a cattle prod earlier, but
yeah, but we'll that could be used against me in a court of law, so we'll keep that quiet.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bring that up. I thought maybe we would start though with just a quick summary, because every year I keep getting requests for information about the gear we use, and I think now there was only one piece of new gear for this CES, and that was the microphone holder itself. But the camera and the mic system the cameras, and the mic system we used is the same as we did last year. So I feel like every year we've refined it just a little bit, but this year felt pretty darn good.
We did. Everyone's still kind of amazed with our gear setup. Our main driver for most of the interviews is the DJI Pocket. And just everyone's amazed how tiny it is, and they look at it like, is that your camera? Is that what we're going to use? And sure enough, and it handles like a champ. It's great, gives us good video. It's small, compact, gives us the battery life that we need, and it's fantastic. And then we have kind of the peripheries of the other accessories that we use. I think this year we had a little bit more iPhone with a snap. With the shift cam grip on there that we were able to use for some live shots and some moving shots, because people don't like to sit in one place. They got to show all their pretty gadget and electronic things going on. So we kind of had to move with the flow, and we use a shift cam for that. The Insta360 we used a couple times to get some good action shots and things of that moving around. And but yeah, the DJI was probably the bulk of our use, and I think we've kind of got the backup system set up especially for audio, and the microphone stand, or the microphone attachment that you had found, and it's perfectly. I mean, that's the professional look that we're looking for. So it's great.
Yeah, if you go back to, I guess, last year's CES and last year's NAB, I found a different microphone holder that looked more like what Gene Rayburn used to use in the 60s TV shows. But then I found something that looked more like a more modern microphone handle that had a windscreen on it that was, it just felt better. It felt better. It looked better. The microphone itself was the same. And I do want to point out the microphone system, as Norbert said, we end up having a backup because the transmitter itself connects to the camera, so the audio goes to the camera. There's not a big surprise, but it also records on the unit itself, so that you have two copies. And we have developed sort of a system as we walk between exhibitors. If there's any kind of distance, I will reach in and turn the mic off just to preserve the battery power, especially on those days when we're doing both day shots or day interviews, day sessions, as well as the evening press events. And once in a while, somebody forgets to turn the microphone back on. And that happened this time just a couple times, because you get involved in talking to the person before the interview. And it has saved a couple interviews because the audio is still on the camera, or on the mic. And then I just go back and pull it off, match it up to the video, and go. So you as the viewer are never the wiser.
Exactly. And, we have a 99.99% success rate. So I'm pretty happy with that success rate. Occasional slip up here and there. Either the cameraman is doing something that you shouldn't be doing, or some on-screen talent is also kind of forgot to turn on the microphone. But we're going to let that pass and add that to our blooper show for next year.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But the shift cam, I think the shift cam and the Insta360 gimbal have been nice additions, because, as you said, not everyone wants to stay right in frame. They want to walk you maybe through the table or whatever. And look, that's fine because it gives you a better idea, especially if they're showing you multiple things. But it also presents a little bit of a challenge because, especially, well, you know what, even press events or show floor, it's a challenge because all these events are packed full of people. And it's not like we can clear 20 feet of floor space and say, okay, this is ours for the next 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's why sometimes you'll see me leaning into a shot or leaning over something or reaching around something to try to make sure that the mic is where it should be, but that the individual we're interviewing is the primary focus of the interview.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that gives people, your viewers, a good perspective of how CES is, that it's not something that just, it's perfectly, it's just a organized chaos, if you want to call it that. That there's people running around and moving around all the place, small spaces, big spaces, loud booms behind you, light flickering on this side. So it's interactive, and that's kind of the fun part, is trying to figure out a way to get a good shot and all that stuff. So it's an evolving practice for us.
And also that some booths are a bit more of a challenge than others because they have intensely colored lights that are shifting. There was what I believe it was the J5 Create booth this year that was very, very, very orange. And so as a result, when the interview starts, everything looks orange, and then a light shifts somewhere, and you get a more normal light, and then we look the way we expect to, then we go back to orange. So and these, again, it's the whole idea is to give you a feel for what it's like, not to be broadcast perfect by any means. Um, it just feels better to me that way, that you get a sense of the excitement and the crowding, but also just the feel of the show.
Exactly, and then, like I said, it's organized chaos, and I thought that this year, maybe because they opened up more of the convention floor as we were walking around, not all the time, but for most of the days, I didn't feel as crowded. Yeah, that we were just shoved in with thousands of people. There was actually a little bit of walking space in certain areas on the show floor that you were able to kind of spread out. And of course, that wasn't good for us because we had to walk more, of course. But at the same time, I didn't feel that everything was just in one place, one central location where you're just crammed in. Everything was a little bit better spread out.
Except in Eureka Park, where
Eureka Park, yeah, for
that's
sure,
just yeah, that's just cramped, period.
for
Which,
sure.
but I mean, the great thing about Eureka Park is that it's the most affordable, and so it's designed for those companies who don't have a lot of money to spend, but they want to have a presence at the show. And so, I mean, I have closets that are bigger than some of the booths, most of the booths at Eureka Park, but that's okay because you found some of the coolest stuff there.
Exactly, and sometimes we start off with someone at Eureka Park, and then they move up to a bigger space, and a bigger space, and a bigger space, and some of the coolest things that we've seen were actually in Eureka Park, are the most innovative and like, "Wow, this is amazing. How did you think of this?" And, next year you go and visit them, and they have a little bit of a bigger booth, and then you visit them again, and they have a bigger booth because they're doing something. So, no shade on Eureka Park. I mean, that's the movers and the shakers and the thinkers in there. So it's interesting how all the ideas, it's like a brain, activity of people. It's good.
Yeah. Which might be a good little segue to say, that we do a fair number of repeat interviews. We have because we've made friends with some of these folks, and not just send me product or anything, but we genuinely enjoy the visits and catching up with them. And but it's not a social thing because they're iterating on their products or they're introducing something new, and they've established some credibility, at least in our minds, that you want to go back and see, oh, what have they done this year that they changed from last year or improved from last year. So it would be very easy to just do 40 shows or so with just brand new people all the time. But we really try to target not just the people that we've talked to before, but also those that they send out interesting press releases or their product announcements look interesting and they look like something that might fit the MacVoices audience.
Exactly, and
So please.
I'm gonna give a little bit of inside baseball of how, because I know you bring it up on the show quite a bit in your, monthly updates of how do you pick who you want to go see? And I'm gonna tell everyone that Chuck does a lot of work, but before CES. It's not that we just show up and we're ready to go. Start He starts receiving a bunch of press releases and all this stuff, so he has this big, huge filter of things that, might find interesting for the viewers of the show and viewers of the channel. Then from there, we can kind of filter it down to say, okay, this might be something that our audience would be, interested in, and this might not be something that would be appropriate for us. So it takes not just showing up to the show, but a lot of pre-work to make sure that we have everything kind of in line. And even one morning, we didn't have anything to do because the show floor was closed that day, but we sat in a coffee shop for like 3 or 4 hours, a couple of hours at least, and just kind of went through everything that was going to be exhibited later that evening. Had to come up with a game plan. Going to CES without a game plan is just futile. You'll just walk around and not get anything done. So, what we try to do is kind of give, a little bit of everything, not just look at just iPhone stuff, but maybe something that has to do with technology or speakers or sound. We had a lot of interesting different things that people would say, well, what does this have to do? What does this have to do with Mac Voices? It's not a Mac product. Well, it doesn't have to be a Mac product, but it's a product that might be innovative and, make someone's life better. And that's what kind of CES is all about, making people's life better over time with technology. And that's amazing.
In fact, the very first interview we did this year was at CES Unveiled, and it was for a flood prevention device that inflates into your doorways, and you can go back and look at it. And I'll do a terrible job of explaining it because it was kind of hard to understand what it did until they demonstrated it, and then it became very obvious. And you're right; it had nothing to do with Macs or anything. Now, at that particular time, some of the severe weather in Florida was very much on our minds, but still, it was a fascinating piece of technology that it's like, okay, this is hard to ignore. You can't walk by this. And from there, we go and visit Mac-oriented things. We visit some that maybe aren't Mac-oriented, but now everything has an iPhone app, so you can kind of tie it in from that standpoint. But yeah, we try to stay on topic, but also leave room for and also leave room for just impromptu. We're walking by a booth and something looks interesting and we stop. Those have been some of the best interviews we've gotten over the years.
Definitely. And there are even a couple of people that we didn't have a chance to do an on-air interview, but I think we kind of have them lined up for maybe in the future. We can bring them onto the show and you can do an interview and talk about their products, because it was just amazing what they were doing. And it all comes back down to that need and how people come up with ideas to fill that need. So it was just the repeating thing over and over that I had this idea because I have this particular problem. I went to the drawing board and I created this technology or this item or this app or whatever it might be, and it solved my problem. And if it solved my problem, it might solve someone else's problem. Like you said, a flood preventer might not be something that be super techy, but at the same time, it solves a problem and it makes someone's life better. Especially if you're going through a hurricane, I'm pretty sure that you would want one of those flood stoppers in your house and be able to prevent a lot of damage that way. So, we're trying to give an overall view because there's absolutely zero way that we can show everything. There's no way. So just a kind of a overview of what we see and what we find interesting and what we hope, our viewers find interesting too.
And look, admittedly, sometimes the price ranges are crazy. They're way outside the range of what you probably will ever spend for a piece of technology. But that too is sort of the fun of it, to show you what's there and show you the concepts behind it, because next year it may have gotten more affordable, or somebody may have done a riff on that product to something that is more applicable to you and definitely more affordable. So, again, you could, I mean, well, you can't possibly, as Norbert said, cover even a small percentage of the show. I think this year, I've lost track of how many exhibitors they said, but I think the attendance was like 145,000 people. Um, and over, let's see, what, one, two, three, four, five exhibit halls, I believe.
It was, yeah, and it was definitely back to pre-COVID-19, attendance, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So the week started out, I beat Norbert to Vegas. Um, and I went to a showcase in a Venetian, where no interviews were specifically shot, just because they do it in a hotel suite. And of course, there are a lot of people milling about, and they might have 6 or 7 exhibitors there. And so the exhibitors are stationed, like in 4 corners of the room. Then one in particular, Oaklean, that we did do an interview with last year, was stationed in the bathroom, because they're an oral hygiene company. Then somebody else is stuck in a closet somewhere. So there's just no way really to that I figured out yet to do a decent interview. But the products there, I mean, they went from the little Boston Dynamics like robotic dogs to a little animatronic dog or puppy that is supposed to be like a therapeutic robot. Um, there was someone we've talked to, not at the show, but not at CES, but on the show, Brendever, which is a virtual environment for MetaQuest headsets. That was kind of fun. And yeah, there were just a lot of interesting things. Some of the automated lawn care things, lawn care and snow plows, robotics that are coming or actually are here now. Still a little pricey, but they're here and they really work well. And I always love going to that particular showcase too, because I get a great view out of the window, the back window of the hotel, over to a golf course just off the strip. So it's like I should be over there, and then I remember how cold it is, because Vegas is not warm at that time of year, and then it's like, yeah, I'm probably happier in here.
Definitely nice to be inside when it's cold and windy. Windy is definitely something that Vegas has.
Yes. So then let's see. That was Sunday and Sunday afternoon, and then Sunday night things kicked off with there's a presentation that is designated for press, and then if you go there, you get in early to Unveiled, which is the first press event of the week. I don't know. I mean, Norbert, I always find the press events the most fun, the most interesting, and I think what makes it that way is that everybody's sort of on an even footing. I mean, everybody sort of has the same size table. Occasionally, somebody will spring for maybe a double size table, but most of the time, it's just all about the product and it's not as much about the glitzy booth that you find on the show floor.
And it kind of sets the stage of what we're going to look for. We start to notice some trends, definitely for sure, in that first event of what it is that is it healthcare this year. Of course, the overriding theme of everything was AI. Everything has AI and everything has an app, of course. But it kind of allows us to get our feet wet, kind of like a little appetizer taster of what we're going to see for the next 4 days together. Just of what everything is going on. And a lot of other, some people want to get the news out quickly, and this is the new glitzy product of CES or what it might be. But I think we take our time a little bit more to spend time with the editing, and we don't want to be the first out the gate. We want to be hopefully the best out the gate. That we're asking the questions that if you were there with us, what are the questions that you would ask these people? What is it you would be interested in learning about the product? Things of that nature. So it's kind of uh, a little bit of a ramp up, which is great. It's not a long day um, uh, compared to some of our other days down the week, but it's a good startup for sure.
But at that event and really all the other interviews we do, I mean, there's so many people. Everybody's trying to get the attention of the vendors and talk to them. And so we intentionally make these interviews relatively short. You, 5, 7, 10 minutes is a long interview at a press event or on a show floor. And sometimes the exhibitor wants to really talk a lot or show a lot of different things, and that's fine. But at some point, it's just like, no, we really need to move along, not just for their benefit, but also for ours, because that way we can get to more people and bring you more things. So that's why maybe if you want an in-depth interview, great. Maybe we can do it later. But a lot of the time, they're there just to give the elevator pitch. We try to ask the questions that you would ask if you were there and move on to the next one. And then if you are interested, you go back and check their website.
Exactly. And what's amazing is that quite a few vendors or quite a few exhibitors recognize us from the previous years. Like, hey, it's Chuck from MacVoices. It's Chuck from MacVoices. So I guess we're making our presence known, which is nice.
Well, and there's Chuck and Norbert. It's Chuck and Norbert. It's Chuck and Norbert. So, just don't sell yourself short. So that's Sunday. Monday, did I do that right? Yeah, Monday. Monday, the show floor is not open, but PepCom is the second big media event, and that's probably the biggest one. And it's the same kind of setup, although again, just bigger with a lot of people. And try to move through there, talk to as many people as we can in short, quick interviews. A lot of times, in all of these press events, um, not everybody is even on the show floor. Sometimes they just come to Vegas for one or two of the press events, so you only have one or two shots at getting to talk to them, and that makes it again, it makes it a challenge, but it also enhances our ability to bring you more.
And that comes back down to the pre-planning. It's not that we show up and just start filming. You have to do some pre-planning, and Chuck does a lot of the pre-planning already, and saying, okay, if this exhibitor is going to be at this event and not going to be at this event, we have to catch them at this event. Or this exhibitor is going to be on the event and not on the show floor, or they might have a presence on the show floor, so we can catch them on the show floor. So it's kind of like you're trying to put the puzzle together on the fly and trying to figure out who's going to be where and when can we get them, and what are the logistics of getting to that person, and so it's kind of like a fun game of cat and mouse. Where's the mouse, and where are we going to catch it?
Yeah, if you go to any of the detective shows and you see the string diagrams up with, the push pins and the strings, that's kind of what it ends up like being like. Because Norbert's right. Sometimes you have to sacrifice and say, okay, I'd love to talk to this one here at the first event, but I know they're going to be at the second or the third, or maybe on the show floor. Meanwhile, these three exhibitors over here are only going to be at this event. We got to target them first.
Exactly, and then some vendors now have moved to suites. So you have to try to see if you can catch them at a suite, or it would make more sense for us to catch them at a press event instead of a suite and not have to go up to visit with them at a suite, and they're the only people that we can see. We could hit 2 or 3 at the same time. So, it is a lot of pre-planning, a lot of frontly pre-planning, but definitely you gotta have a game plan in action.
Yeah. Well, I think probably I would guess that anybody that went to CES for the first time maybe didn't appreciate how much you need a plan. And yeah, it becomes very evident very quickly that you're going to do a lot of walking and not get anything done, not get anything in return if you don't have a plan. So let's see. That means then that's Monday. So Tuesday, the show floor opens during the day at 10 o'clock, and we hit it. Usually, we walk in with the majority of the crowd at 10 o'clock, record interviews during the day. Then, let's see, this year, where did we go? Was it Bellagio? Yeah, it was Bellagio for Showstoppers
And Bellagio for
um,
showstoppers.
on Monday night.
For the viewers, Tuesday and Wednesday are our longest days. Okay, so we're doing this for you. We are spending about 12, 13 hours on our feet that day, going from either the show floor to the hotel or show floor to a convention center. We're basically on our feet. I think we sit down to have maybe a 30-minute lunch, if that, and then sitting down on the shuttle bus to get us back to the hotel. But other than that, we're moving around for sure. We're putting our steps in those days.
I can't remember now which booth it was, but we part of the interview was done sitting at a table, and we told the interviewee that it was the first time we'd sat down anywhere since what 9 that morning, getting off the shuttle bus.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And,
it's crazy.
and for the viewers, I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. Go back to the videos that Chuck's posted already, and there's a video where Chuck is sitting down and to do the entire interview. And it's probably one of the most comfortable seats he's ever had, for back pain. So a little bit of homework, go back for all the archives of the 50 plus video that he posted out and look for it. It's a great, great interview.
I know the one you're talking about, and I know why you're recommending it. So I'll say this: at one of the Showstoppers
It is
interviews.
it is. Go find it, people. It's
Yes,
there.
yes. Do you want to elaborate on that, or are you just going to let it go?
And I'll just let it sit there and have the people have the curiosity drive the people to find out what I'm talking about.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh man. So Wednesday there are no press events at night, but the show floor opens at 9 on Wednesday. And again, we're there when it opens, and we usually come pretty close to closing it down at 6 o'clock when the show floor closes. I think that I mean, and the other interesting thing, as Norbert has alluded to, is not only do we have to do all the other juggling, but you have to figure out which hall to go to when. And sometimes you might finish at, let's say, 5. It's just not worth trying to get to one of the other halls, either walking or by the underground Elon Musk's tube that is populated with Teslas. So sometimes you just have to say, okay, that's enough. We did what we could. So yeah, there are a lot of different mechanics to it, but we put in a lot of time. And then Thursday, well, Norbert had to go home a little early this year, so he made the mistake of leaving me unattended in Vegas, and I just wrapped up a couple things from the show floor that we just hadn't gotten to on Thursday.
Yeah.
But it's not nearly as much fun without Norbert.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, unless it's on a MacVoices YouTube video. Other than that, it stays in Vegas.
Well, there are those outtakes, but we won't get into that.
For sure.
So we did come home with some review products. You'll be hearing more from us about those in the next couple weeks when we both have had a little more time to work with them. Because I don't know, I don't know how you all feel out there, but I get a little frustrated when I see a review come out 2 days or a day after a product is announced. I don't believe that you can really figure out whether a product is good or bad or for you in just that short amount of time. And I personally have kind of a policy here that if I don't care for a product, I mean, like if it's not one I can recommend, I'll go back and tell the vendor. I'm not going to waste your time telling you that, well, this is not a great product. But I'm also, it doesn't mean it has to be an absolute 5 out of 5 product because it might not necessarily suit me for everything, but it might suit you just perfectly. So if you don't hear about something, it's probably because we maybe didn't care for it or didn't get one. And if you do hear about it, it means we felt it was worth your time.
Definitely. Like you said, it's not fair to the audience to just post a review to post a review. We have a little some time now that CES is passed, and we have 10 months more before our next CES adventures. So we have time to really test these products out, and put it through the ringer, and use it as people from the audience would use it. What is it that they're looking for out of the product? What are some opportunities for the next iteration of the product that we could, say, this works great, but maybe if it would do this a little bit better or this a little bit better, maybe that would be a little bit something that they could work on for the next version. Because it's continuing improvement. It doesn't just stay in one form factor. Things change. They get bigger, smaller, less expensive, more expensive. So it definitely we're gonna take our time on that, and we look forward to coming out in the future with some good reviews.
Agreed. Um, there were two. I don't know about you, Norbert. I wanted your input because there were two particular interviews or products I really wish we'd gotten to this year, and we didn't. And usually, well, I'll just say why. The first one was Insta360 because they had a number of new products out that they were showing, as well as some of their existing products, and there was just no way to get to the booth. It was packed wall to wall every time. In fact, I went back twice on Thursday after Norbert had gone, even at off hours, hoping I could get to talk to someone, and there was just no way. It just they do too. There were too many great products, and there were too many super enthusiastic people to actually get there. The other one was an interview that I wish we could have figured out a way to have it make sense at Showstoppers, and I want to make sure I get it right, is and the Even Realities AR glasses. We intentionally have stayed away from AR VR stuff for the most part, but I put these on, and I really was kind of amazed at how good it was because the first thing it would do, it would translate. So if Norbert was speaking Spanish, which he did to me, it would translate and it would put it in little green LEDs inside the glass. You would never see it, but I could see then a translated version of what he was saying. Directions were another thing because it would put up like turn left here or turn right in a quarter mile. But if I would tilt my head back up a little bit, it would give me a graphic representation, a lot bigger and a lot larger. There was just no way to show you that, and now I'm sorry we didn't try to at least describe it to you, because if it was the only AR solution that I saw that really I thought I could see myself wearing these under certain circumstances.
Definitely, and like you said, it's difficult to allow the viewer to experience what we experience with AR glasses. It's like trying to describe someone who has never used an Apple Vision Pro how it is. Until you actually try it, you really can't experience it. So that was probably one of the hardest part, but that was an amazing product that we were able to try out. And like you said, it was fashionable. It wasn't this chunky headset or something like that. It was just a pair of glasses that you can wear. It was great.
And there were no cameras on it, which, that's what seemed to kill Google Glass, or was one of the things that put the nail in Google Glass's coffin. And yet we saw the Meta Ray-Bans being used to record, maybe not interviews, but just record show floor activities. And so I have mixed feelings about that, but I have not tried them. So at some point, I hope to get a chance to try them. But there were a whole lot of AR glasses, goggles, VR glasses, and goggles, and it just seemed like, okay, there's going to be a shakeout here, and we could spend all week going and trying all of these on, and maybe they would not be here by the time that you heard the interview. Maybe they won't be here next year.
And one of the notes that I was taking as we're talking today was a lot of translation products and amazing translation products that like we would go visit 4 or 5 years ago, and it would take some time for it to process and so forth. And now it's almost instantaneously. And they even have one that has an AI voice that will actually record your voice, and when it translates it out to somebody else, let's say you're in a foreign country, it'll actually be your voice speaking their language, which is amazing.
Or translating it back, give you their voice without, I'm not going to say with absolutely no accent, but with a very minimal accent, so that it was easy for you to understand.
Yeah, and in the matter of a few years, we've just come so far so quickly, and the products on these, translation products can get smaller and smaller and smaller and more compact and easier to use with longer battery life. So, if they ask, why are we going back to the same people? Well, that's the reason why. We want to see what's new and different this year compared to last year, and then, trying the progression of technology, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think we say this a number of times in talking to different exhibitors on camera, but the challenges of a show floor or even the press events with all the electronics in there, all the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth signals and everything, at times it's almost a miracle that anything works. So once in a while you run into a vendor who is having a real problem, getting the connectivity they need, and we try to either edit that out or just, kind of work our way around it, because it's clearly not necessarily a problem with the product. It's more just the fact that you are in that environment and trying to demonstrate it the best they can.
We have nothing they can do about that. There's just so much bandwidth that they can gather. So it is what it is, and sometimes it's nothing on their part that they were able to do that was wrong. Just the nature of the CES show floor sometimes.
Yeah. Um, so I thought we'd wrap up by, and this is probably unfair, just try to name some favorites or maybe some things that are on your to buy list that you were just so impressed with. And when I know I find it really difficult to say favorites, because probably 85% of the interviews uh, are something that I honestly want to go and check out for myself. So to say it's a favorite, because it comes from, some of them come from friends of ours, some of them come from people we've just met. So I sort of stayed away from a favorites list. The one thing I'm looking forward, I would really want to try, is the Plod, which is a voice recorder and AI agent that can record meetings, transcribe them, summarize them, and send them to you, all in something that will fit on the back of your wrist or as a pendant that you can wear. I've read several reviews of it. In fact, I know someone who has one, and he's been very, very happy with it. And so it's almost one of those that if I were working in an office again, I would definitely have it, because I'm not working in an office is probably the reason I haven't jumped on it just yet. But that's probably one of the first things on my buy to try list.
Yeah,
Norbert?
I'm not gonna use the word favorites either, because it's very difficult to say this was my favorite or best of show for us. But there were a lot of things that I found interesting. The grill from from brisket was just amazing, and how technology is infused, that it could make me a better cook. That if I go and buy a nice steak or whatever meat that I want to use, it'll do all the thinking for me. So it evens the playing ground, so to say. The translation devices were something that would be definitely very useful. For those people that don't have, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the things that I was looking at. For people that don't have windows in their office, there you can go and get a window that will change views depending on what time it is in that city, or if you don't have the ability to, like I said, have a window. You could have a window just with an LCD screen, and it was amazing. Um, Something as simple and as like, why didn't anyone think of it earlier? Is it never fails that your smoke detector will always go off in the middle of the night and start beeping at you to change the battery. Well, there's a company, I can't remember off the top of my head, and Beth knows, you might remember, that's integrated with Ring, and it'll let a little bit before the battery is about to go out. So you don't get that annoying sound that basically startles you in the middle of the night to replace the battery. Things that make your life better. The chairs, an indoor garden that you could basically, anyone can be a gardener. Plant your herbs, plant all this stuff, and take care of the water. And you got to replace the water. If you have an apartment and you wanted to have a garden, you have that ability. Headphones, it was just on and on. Keyboards, packs, some of the backpacks. I'm kind of looking at some of the backpacks that we saw. The amazing features, especially for travel and business, that you could really customize it to however you want to see fit and move pockets around, and it's just well done. Those are my things that kind of caught my eye. I'm not going to say favorites. Those are just things that I think that will make my life better. Out of the 50 plus videos, might be something else for somebody else. So give it a look, and see what you might find as your favorite. I'd find it interesting what the audience thinks is their favorite, and things that they found interesting that maybe we didn't as much. And it's great.
Yeah, I too have a bag problem. There were several bags I want to check out.
Yeah.
As much as I love the STM bag that I carry for shows, there were a couple things there that, okay, they might actually be a better fit as our gear has changed, or and maybe not. But
Yeah.
that'll be something I'm exploring. They're just, I mean, I was going back over the list before we did this discussion, and it's like, that's great. Oh yeah, well that was really fantastic. And so yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, folks. Go and enjoy it. But Norbert brings up a great point. We would love to know what you really enjoyed, or was there something you really didn't enjoy that you thought we were just completely off base on? So you can always reach me at chuck@macvoices.com, and or use the contact form on the website. That's actually probably a better option, because then it actually gets tagged as feedback for the show, and I'll see it faster. But yeah, I want to know what you would like. And this year, we even had a listener a viewer who emailed during the show and said they'd seen something that they wanted to know more about. And that was the impetus for the very last day talking to Elephant Robotics about their, oh shoot, I think they're calling it now Comfort Tech, Companion Tech, that, these little animatronic animals are being used in nursing homes or in different therapy situations for children. And it's really kind of amazing. And that did remind me of something that I wanted to bring up, and I'll have some video of this. But the little robotic animals I was talking about, like the Boston Robotics dog, they aren't furry and cute, but they do look like a dog. And the number of times I saw people interacting with them, when I've come across them, people inevitably were interacting with them, and also with the animatronic ones, like they were real animals. And I even stopped the one lady who looked at the Boston Robotics like dog, and she had leaned down and was almost acting like she was letting it sniff her hand. And so I asked her what was going on, and she said, "Well, it just looked like a dog." And I thought, okay, this is really interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. That people, even though it wasn't furry and it didn't have eyes or anything, that she reacted to it in such a human way, a human animal relationship way, that I could come to understand how the puppy from the showcase and also the elephant robotics animals, how they serve a purpose for people that have that need for companionship or a relationship with an animal.
Definitely, and it comes back to the main thing. Somebody who has a need figures out and goes to the drawing board, comes up with a product, revises it, revises it, revises it, and then it shows up at CES. I have, unfortunately, I know a lot of people that are suffering or have suffered from dementia or Alzheimer's, and they weren't able to have a pet any longer because they were not able to care for it. And now they have something that might not be a full fledged pet, but it gives them that same feeling, that same companionship that they had before without having to take care of a pet. There was another gentleman, I want to say it was Lotus, the name of the company, m- and he was a former Apple engineer, which basically got our attention up. It perked us right up of talking to him. But he had issues and didn't want to, wasn't able to get to the light switch, and came up with an invention that you don't need an internet connection, you don't need Wi-Fi, you don't need Bluetooth, just to turn off the wire, to turn off the lamp. It's a magic ring. So go back and give it a look at the really good interview that we just kind of leaped on and found it interesting. One of those impromptu type of things that we were, you know, kind of hit us. So it all comes back to there's a need. The human brain comes up with an idea of how to solve that, fixes it, fixes it, fixes it, and shows up at CES, and we try to bring it to the viewers and, allow them to kind of experience how technology works and how technology, the most important thing for me is makes your life better. Doesn't work all the time. It's fiddly, and sometimes we have to go to the forums to figure out a solution, and something's not working quite right, and that's okay. But overall, technology makes our lives better, and that's what the show's all about, and that's what the channel's all about. So that's our taste of CES for you.
And we could go on for hours as work our way through the list and talk about what really impressed us about this device or that device or the individual that we talked to, or the company and how it's iterated from previous years. That's why, but and maybe you would find that interesting, but that's why we like to talk to the people themselves. Let them present the product to you and let you get a feel for, their, because sometimes, yes, occasionally we run into someone who's just a spokesperson and it becomes very evident very quickly. But most of the time, these people are there because they have a passion for one reason or another about their product, and they really want to tell you about it, and they want to get you to have that visceral sense of, to Norbert's point, why it makes your life better, what problem it solves. And so I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy all the interviews because we have a blast doing it. If we made it sound tonight like it's a lot of work, it is a lot of work. It's also a lot of fun. And then we get the added benefit of having breakfast and dinner with our own little cadre of friends at Vegas who are also out doing their own interviews and their reviews of the show. And we gather and compare notes. And it's also sort of unusual because there's no competition between us. It's just a matter of what did you see that was cool that we should go see, and what did we see that you should go see? And so it just top to bottom, it's one of the best weeks of the year.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, those breakfasts are fun. Sometimes we have some very spirited and lively conversations about what technology means and what is the future. So those are some of the best times we get to see old friends, and sometimes we only see them at the ES, unfortunately. So it's a nice time to those times together, and then we go on our merry way, and sometimes catch up at the end of the day for a nice dinner. And what did you see? What did you see? What did you see? And and have another lively, spirited debate about technology sometimes.
Sometimes it's just a spirited debate about whatever we want to
Whatever.
debate about. Yeah.
Topic du jour.
Norbert, I can't thank you enough for not just for doing this, but also for your friendship and for all your efforts at making Mac Voices look good at CES and making me look good at CES. It's a great partnership, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's my pleasure. We were both very enthusiastic about technology. We both love technology. Well, pushing buttons and getting things to work. So that's what makes it fun. It's one of the best weeks of my year. Or something I look forward to each year. We get tired and so forth, and have some aspirins to kind of deal with some aches and pains at the end of the day. But we get through it, and looking forward to our next adventure in about 12 months. Actually, 10 months now.
10 months, yeah.
Yeah.
You weren't supposed to mention the aspirins. Shh, that's a secret.
It'll be a secret.
Norbert, what's the best way for folks to connect with you when you're not here sharing Mac or CES stories?
Well, you know me, I like to hang out behind the camera. I'm not one that likes to go and shout. But if people really want to know who I am, just Google my name, Norbert Frassa. I'm the only person in the world that has that name. So you can Google and what I'm all about. But most of the time you'll find me behind the camera, trying to make Chuck look good and keep him on track. And looking forward to being in front of the camera a little bit more this year to do some Mac Voices reviews and some things together and part of the live show. So you'll see me a little bit more on camera, but I like to stay under the radar for most.
That whole witness protection thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Folks, I'm Chuck Joiner. This is Mac Voices, and again, this is our CES wrap-up show for 2025. I've tried during some of the newsletters. I've also tried with some of the updates to give you an idea of why we do some of what we do and to answer some questions. There is a post that I will be updating probably by the time this goes out on the Mac Voices blog, answering even a few more of those questions so that they are memorialized and you can go and find them after the fact. But that hopefully will give you just a little more insight into why we do it and how we do it, and make you want to go back and look at those interviews maybe in a little different light. That's it for this CES in 2025. We're looking forward to doing it again in 2026. But in the meantime, there's a lot more in between. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.